Yeah. You ready? Hey! Let's go. Back.
Okay, I guess I'll get started. So sorry for everyone who showed up thinking to expect Peyton to speak. He's gone, and you're stuck with me. So that's right. That's what I was expecting. Okay. First of all, I'm really nervous. Like, you're looking at the person that did not show up when they were supposed to present in speech in high school. Yeah, I would not show up. I'm going to be sharing my testimony with you guys today. I remember whenever Peyton asked me to speak, ever since I knew I was going to share, I just had a lot of doubts in my head, thinking that no one was going to relate to me, or I'm not going to reach anyone. No one's really going to understand what I went through, and I'm not going to be able to relate to anyone, or they can't relate to me. And I also had the fear of just coming up here and speaking. Obviously, I'm still a little shaky. Hopefully that'll get better. I'm sweating. It's really bright. Thank you, Megan. Also, just it's kind of silly, but the fear that I may offend someone, which you'll find out why later, because it's not talked about at all in church, and it's become more normalized with the world we live in today, and Christianity, which is really messed up, but that's just how it is. And I just was really worried I'm going to offend someone, and they may not come back to youth because of what I said or whatever. But just also with stuff I've dealt with my friends in the past, just the fear of also sharing with literally everyone tonight, and just thinking everyone's going to look at me differently, or I'm going to make people uncomfortable, which has happened with my past friendships since I've had since super young. Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Peyton's message last week, it was so powerful, and God just really spoke to me and just showed me I am meant to share my testimony. And he just reminded me that someone in here today needs to hear the story of my valley. Okay, so I'm gonna get started. Buckle up. The beginning's not so bad. I'll tell you when to hold on when it gets a little bit more rough, bumpy. So, November 6, 2002, a red-headed, 6-pound, 9-ounce baby was born. That baby was me. I grew up in a very strong, Christ-centered, godly household. I've gone to church my whole life. I first went to Abundant Life till I was about 4, which that's in Godfrey. And then my parents were actually youth pastors at Abundant Life. And then at River of Life, my parents were youth pastors there as well. We went there for about 9 or 10 years, I think. Probably more, 9 years. Yeah. Anyway, my parents were youth pastors there for a few years. And then now we go to New Hope. We arrived at New Hope a few months before the first year anniversary. So I've been going here for quite some time, I guess. So with my parents being youth pastors at both churches, I've really just grown up in that youth atmosphere for a good portion of my life. And I do want to say something I'm so proud of this youth group. It's so evident that every single one of you is so on fire for God and just so hungry for more of him. And I've never, my experience I've had with other youth groups, I haven't ever seen that in students. And it's never been so evident. So yeah, I really am proud of you guys for that. I got baptized by my dad when I was 12 at River of Life. Also, River of Life is also called the River now. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's how I knew the Falks. Went to church with them. Okay, starts to get a little bumpy. So hold on a little. Okay. So at a very early age, I think either in 3rd or 4th grade, I can't remember, but I knew when it stopped. But either 3rd or 4th grade, I was very curious with the things I watched on TV, and then I started watching porn and using forms of self-pleasure. That stopped my freshman year of high school, and this lasted for years. And it got really bad. I would do this at least twice a day for years. But God finally set me free from those things, from those lustful thoughts and those self-pleasure desires, which was so hard to get out of, but it was worth it. So, hold on tight. So we're going to fast forward to the summer of my sophomore year. I joined an AAU team, basketball team called the Hawks. And, I started making a lot of friends on the team, started to get a lot closer with more people. But there was one girl on the team I started to just get really close with. Holding on tight. And after a month or so, I got into a relationship with her. This relationship just literally took everything out of me, physically, mentally, emotionally, and so much, especially spiritually. Oh, that's my spot. During this relationship, she invalidated my feelings all the time. I was never able to share how I felt at all. She just made me feel like my feelings were never valid. She always told me I was playing the victim. So I had to keep my thoughts and feelings to myself all the time, and that was so emotionally and just mentally draining because I had no one else to go to at that time. I literally only had her and no one else in my life. All my friends left me because of what I told them about this relationship. I made them either uncomfortable or we just didn't talk as much as we used to. And it was kind of weird. You grow up with people your whole life, and then just because of this one thing, they just completely abandon you. So I literally had no one. I had no one to go tell my feelings to. So I just had to keep it to myself, and it was just so draining for me. I remember I was super rude and disrespectful to my parents. It was bad. I was very disobedient. I didn't listen to anything they would say. I would come home super late. I would avoid all their calls, all their texts. I was just super rude to them. I lost all my trust for my parents, and it's a hard thing to hear whenever your parents tell you that they don't trust you. I remember I had to gain that trust back, and it took a long time. I remember I would just be going out, after all this happened, I would go to hang out with other friends, and they would start interrogating me. I'm like, I swear, I'm just going to hang out with my friends. But it took a long time to gain that trust back. This relationship took all of my purity. She used me and took advantage of me, which started to just bring in a lot of negative thoughts of my self-worth and just made me very insecure about my body and just me as a person, really. I was feeding my flesh, but my spirit was slowly dying. Well, not even slowly, it was dying fast, to be honest. I just felt so much disgust and so much shame and guilt. This is the reason, I was afraid I was going to offend someone. Bringing up this kind of stuff. I know it's not talked about at all in church, which, I did want to share this part of it, because I know I never had anyone to relate to when I was growing up. No one ever talked about this kind of struggle before. It was just kind of, shunned in church, we don't talk about that. So, I had no one to relate to that could, I could talk to about my struggles. But, that's what I was most nervous about, is, talking about this kind of stuff. But, for me, looking at it, if it's not a sin, then why would I be feeling, so much conviction and shame and guilt and, disgust? When I was in this relationship, that literally was the Holy Spirit living in me that was trying to convict me, telling me, showing me, this is wrong, this is not what you're supposed to be doing, this is not what I created you for. So for 2.5 years or so, I just dealt with so much shame and guilt and disgust of myself. And it was just so overwhelming at times because I really just started to believe these thoughts that, God doesn't want me anymore. There's no way he wants me after all of this. He doesn't even care if I go to church or not. He's not going to care anymore. And I just felt like I was way too far gone. And there was no hope left for me anymore. And I just kind of accepted the fact that this was how my life was going to be for the rest of my life. I'm going to live this sinful life out full of shame and guilt. And then towards the end of May last year, whenever all this ended, she just completely abandoned me, stopped talking to me, didn't answer my calls, my texts, just no warning signs or anything, literally just abandoned me, which started to make me question myself, my self-worth even more. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, am I not worthy of, like, being loved? Like, is no one going to really love me, like, for who I am? So, yeah, it brought a lot more insecurity and negative thinking. But, yeah, I mean, it was really draining. But right after all this happened, I met 3 girls. Those girls were Anna, Ashlyn, and Lauren. I mean, I'm bringing them up because they are a huge part of my testimony, whether they fully know it or not. And Grace and Maddie came along a little bit after, and they are a part of my testimony too. But, like, if they didn't come into my life at the time that they did, I don't even know where I would be right now. Like, I don't think those 3 really understand, like, how much they led me back to Christ. Because I literally had no one. I mean, I had Mallory. I don't know, you guys don't know Mallory. She's been one of my best friends since I was really little. You know, I actually talked about it with her recently because she was one of those friends that just, like, completely stopped talking to me, like, once I started doing these things. And I asked her, I was like, why didn't you try to pull me out of it? Like, why didn't you help me through this? And she said, because I didn't know how to relate to you. She said, I didn't know what you were feeling. I didn't know how to, like, talk you through it or get you out of it because I didn't know what you were struggling with because I can't relate to you with those kind of things, which is why I also think it's really important for me to share, like, all this stuff with you guys. Because, like, I know I felt like I couldn't get out of any of it, and I was just struggling on my own so much because I had no one to go to. So whenever those girls showed up in my life, like, my life completely changed. I was filled with so much joy and happiness once they finally came to my life, and they just led me back to the right path. And I never thought that I would be best friends with a bunch of 15-year-olds at the time. I was like, I'm about to go on college, and I'm friends with a bunch of sophomores. I ain't mad about it. Yeah, Lauren was the first to know. I remember it was probably like our first time actually hanging out together. I took her home, like, by ourselves. I took her home from the 4th of July party at the Clues. I literally just spilled everything out. I don't even know what happened. Like, I just left it all on the floor. And then Lauren then shared stuff that she struggles with and stuff in her past life with me. And then about a month after, I told Ashlyn, Anna, Grace, and Maddie. And I remember telling them, and I was so nervous whenever I first told them, but one thing I can remember is they did not look at me any differently. I didn't make them feel uncomfortable, and they didn't judge me for any of it. And I've never had that experience in my life whenever I, like, tell people my story, that kind of thing. Last summer, at summer camp, on the last night, Pastor Micah shared a really powerful message. And at the end of the service, he had us do something that was even more powerful. He had us write down on a piece of paper someone that we need to forgive or just baggage that we need to let go of. And then after we were done writing, we had to take it to one of the leaders, and they were to read it, and then they would pray over us. And I remember whenever Pastor Micah said that, Lauren was sitting right next to me. She looked at me. I was like, so I was like, no one else knows this right now besides her. And I remember I could barely think of what to write just because there was so much stuff. And I didn't even, like, know how to shorten it or how to, like, really word everything. But after I was done writing, I went up to Callie, and she read over it, and I just remember I immediately started bawling. And then she prayed over me, and then, like, for the first time in a long time, for the first time, I finally felt like that burden had just been lifted off my shoulder. And, like, for so long, I've just been carrying that baggage in my past, and I realized, like, it'd been weighing me down so much to the point where it was preventing me from fully moving towards the plan God has for me. So, like, letting go of that baggage from the past, like, I'm going to encourage you guys to do that after I'm done speaking, but you need to let go of all that stuff to fully move forward, because that stuff is weighing you down. It's not helping you. You need to let go of it. It's not worth it. So once summer ended, school was about to start back up, and this was my first year of college. So, there were a lot of emotions. I was nervous. I was somewhat excited for basketball. I went to Webster this year. mainly for basketball. I knew they had a good academic program for exercise science. I was really just there for basketball, if I'm being honest. Preseason workouts started right from the beginning of the year, so like late August. And at this point, it was starting to get a little challenging trying to manage my academics and basketball at the same time. The season officially started October 15th, and that lasted till about the end of March. So that's 8 months. I had no break, and I was just doing basketball all the time. And this year was literally one of the hardest years for me academically and basketball-wise, and like very much mentally. Like I would literally, whenever preseason first started, we had conditioning Monday, Wednesday, and then we had lifting Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I live about 50 minutes away from Webster at the time. And on Mondays and Thursdays, we also had COVID testing. And I would have to wake up at 4:30 every morning, get ready, drive almost an hour to go there, get tested, wait an hour for weights to start or for conditioning or for my class. Because I didn't, that's a lot of driving. I didn't want to go all the way back and then have to drive all the way back to school. So I would just have to sit there in my car and literally just wait for either class or basketball or something like that. So yeah, I had no break at all for 8 months. Some nights or some days I would wake up at 5 in the morning, then get home at 11 p.m. and then I have homework I have to do, but I was so mentally and physically drained that I just completely stopped doing my assignments. I was doing very bad academically. I was starting to give up on a lot of things, basketball and academics. And like for the first time in my life, I had very strong, heavy suicidal thoughts. And like I've never dealt with any depression or suicidal thoughts before in my life. So like I didn't know how to handle it. Like I didn't know, like I've known Anna or Ashlyn and Lauren have talked about it with me before, how they struggle with the same things. But I still didn't know how to react to any of it. I didn't know how to explain it or anything like that. So I was kind of dealing with it on my own. I mean, Lauren kind of knew I wasn't okay, even though I tried to hide it the best I could. But yeah, I mean, these thoughts were like so heavy that like I literally was planning on committing suicide. Like I was like gonna do it one night. But thankfully, Lauren knew I was not okay. And she called me and I picked it up and, she talked me through it and helped me with all of that. But yeah, shout out Lauren. Thanks for calling me. But once the season ended, my mental health got so much better. Well, it did, but like I completely stopped showing up to practice like towards the end of the season just because the way this year went. I'll tell you a little bit, but basically on my visit there 2 years ago, in February, whenever I went to go visit, I was told, I was the duct tape of the team. I was exactly what they've been looking for. I'm going to get a starting position. I'm going to be playing the whole time. And then whenever season came, found out freshmen only get 2 minutes of playing time at the end of the fourth quarter when we're already up by 50. So like for me, especially, I've been playing since third grade on a real team, and I've always been playing to glorify God and to honor God. Like I wear this wristband all the time. It says, "In Jesus' name I play." Like that's what I'm trying to do when I play basketball. I'm doing it to glorify God and to honor him. So whenever I'm not playing, I just feel like I'm disappointing him. I'm not good enough. I just feel like I'm doing the complete opposite. Like I'm just disappointing God if I'm not doing that. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I know it's not good that I just completely stopped showing up, but that's kind of how it went for me this year. I was just giving up on everything, so I just completely stopped showing up to practices and to games. And everything that happened this year in basketball and in school was just like so spiritually draining, especially with the team I was on and the school I went to. It was a very liberal school. And my teammates, I love all of them. I'm very happy for the experience that I had at Webster because it did teach me a lot, and God has shown me I went through all of it for a reason. But there were a lot of people on the team that were just they're hurting people. And I say that just because they hurt people. Yeah, I mean, that's really all I can think of for those girls. But I remember I tried to be so patient and loving with them still, even though it was so hard. Because remember, they just like be so rude for no reason. I'm like, you're one of the leaders on the team and you're treating everyone else like this. Like, no one's going to look up to you if you're doing that. But yeah, I mean, I try to be as patient as I can, as I could be. And during the beginning of the year, I was actually supposed to start a Bible study. I don't have this in my notes, so I'm just going to try to wing it. I was going to start a Bible study with my team, and everyone on the team knew I was very strong in my faith, knew I was a Christian. I had almost everybody on the team wanting to be a part of the Bible study, and then out of fear, I ended up not doing it at all. And like, that's been coming up a lot. Like, the devil's just been trying to remind me of that. Like, oh, you're not even good enough. You can't even do this Bible study. Like, yeah, I remember, I don't know, he's just tried to fill me with a lot of shame and guilt for not actually following through with that. But I know that I did leave a mark on my teammates, because they still text me, they tell me, like, because I'm leaving Webster next year to go to a different school. They all found that out, not from me, I don't know how. But like, they all told me, like, they're gonna miss me, and like, I've had numerous people on the team ask me if I can pray for them, which, like, so yeah, like, I did leave a mark on the team, whether the devil tries to remind me of how I didn't follow through with the Bible study or not. But I mean, God really has just shown me a lot this year, why I went through everything, and he's just preparing me and trying to equip me with what he has for me in the future. But yeah, he just really showed me that everything that I went through this year, even though how physically and emotionally and mentally draining it was, and spiritually, really, he just showed me, I had to go through all of this for a reason to get to where I'm going next year. And like, even just like to praise him and to glorify him even more, like, okay, he put me through this for a reason, so I can have something much better next year, which I am going to be attending Greenville University next year. It is a Christian college, and I remember whenever I went to go visit, literally all the conversations I had with my coaches were just about God, and like, it was just like I was filled with so much peace and just so much happiness, because that's like all I've ever wanted ever since I started playing basketball, was just like to have like teammates that can relate to me, that I can relate with, that I can like talk about these kind of things with. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so excited, because like I said, like, the coaches and all the players are very much rooted in Christ. And the Coach Mo at Greenville, he's just started that Christ culture on the basketball team. And it's, yeah, I already come in contact with a couple of them I've known since high school. They attend Greenville. They're going to be seniors next year. And I've looked up to them since I was in high school. So the fact that I get to play with them now, and I get to like talk to them every day, if I have any questions, I can go to them. If I need prayer, I can go to them. I didn't have that at Webster. Like, all of the teammates there, they believed in God. They were Christians, not doing Christian things. But like, I never feel like I had someone on the team where I could go to and be like, hey, can you pray for me over this? Because also, if you know a college athlete, like, please check on them. Like, I mean that. Like, it is a lot harder than people think. But yeah, I mean, we all related to each other, and just the fact that none of us were mentally okay. Like, I remember all the freshmen, like, we were all so depressed, and we had to fill out like this little survey of like how depressed we were, and we were all up there. It was bad. I was like, guys, we should talk about this. But yeah, I mean, that's basically it for my testimony. I mean, God's still using me today. Like, my testimony doesn't end. Like, this is just the beginning. And this is what I'm going to share with you guys, or this is what I have shared with you guys. But for the response time, I want to do like what Pastor Micah had us do at the summer camp. I'm just going to have the leaders along the room. If you don't feel comfortable going to a leader, then go to a friend that you feel comfortable with. But I just want us to go to one another and just confess to one another about what we're struggling with, what situation we're in. And I want us to pray for each other. I really do feel like there's going to be breakthrough in this room. And chains are just going to be broken. But we're going to have a song playing in the background while this is going on. But I just really need you guys to know, like, you are never too far gone. Like, I felt that way, and God still reminded me that he was there with me the whole time. Like, I was never alone. Like that poem that Kiki shared last week about whenever we see only one set of footprints, that's just Christ carrying us through it. Like, that's such a good poem. Yeah, you're not alone. Do not feel like you are too far gone, and do not feel like God doesn't want you anymore. That's not true. That's just our own negative thinking. That's just the devil trying to get in our head and tell us these lies. Guys, he did not leave me. He's not going to leave you. Our sin is the same, whether people try to twist that or not. All sin is the same. Mine is not worse than yours. Yours is not worse than mine. Sin is sin, and God still loves us, and he's still with us through all of that, whether we turn our backs to him or not. He's still been with us in that through it all. So I think that's what I got.